Europe faces two related crises, a gas crisis and an electricity crisis. Russia, previously Europe's top supplier of gas, has cut supplies in retaliation for EU sanctions over the war in Ukraine, and with gas imports from other suppliers such as Norway and Algeria at maximum capacity, there is not a lot of room for potential problems, experts say. Europe's security of gas supply is facing unprecedented risk as Russia intensifies its use of natural gas supplies as a political weapon, the International Energy Agency warned in a report in early October. Gas accounted for roughly 20% of EU electricity generation in 2020, while around half of gas consumed in Europe is used for space heating during winter. Europe's electricity supply has also been impacted by drought and heat waves over the summer that caused problems with hydropower generation and French nuclear power plants. EU countries have agreed to cut gas demand by 15% and set electricity savings targets during peak hours as part of emergency energy measures. They are also working to control high prices in hopes of easing the situation in the years to come. Governments are working hard to prevent a shortage, filling European gas storage to above 90% on average and replacing Russian pipeline gas imports with liquefied natural gas, LNG, which is traded on large ships. But an increase in European but also Asian demand for gas due in part to weather could create more competition for LNG imports and drive prices up again, he added. If these high prices then do not result in lower demand, it might lead to gas rationing. What could happen in a worst-case scenario? First of all, gas is consumed primarily in industry, power generation, and space heating. Space heating you would like to cut off last. That means that if cold weather is forecast, there would likely be an ask to the industrial sector first to reduce its consumption. Energy-intensive industries, such as steelmaking, glass-making, or the fertilizer sector, could be paid not to consume gas or electricity at peak demand times. Then other factories might be paid to shut down. But if that doesn't work to reduce demand in a crisis, there could be cuts to gas supplies for commercial entities, meaning shops and businesses might have to close. Countries could also activate a public information campaign to reduce consumer demand. In France, for instance, consumers could receive a notification to cut their consumption at peak hours, in the morning and evening, through the EcoWatt system, which measures electricity consumption in real time. There are also ways for electricity transmission companies to save power, such as reducing the voltage in a so-called brownout. This reduction in voltage would have an impact on industry rather than consumers. France's public electricity company Enedis said there would be a 5% drop in voltage that would slightly reduce the power of electrical devices. Mobile phones might charge more slowly and light bulbs would decrease in brightness, for instance. In an absolute worst-case scenario, consumers may face rolling blackouts. Consumers and industries can take actions to avoid these worst-case scenarios, including reducing gas and electricity demand during peak hours by limiting temperatures and investing in energy efficiency, experts say. What's important now is for all member states to put in place those measures that will encourage consumers and will remunerate consumers to reduce consumption during stress periods so that we can avoid a worst-case scenario. Demand reduction is one of the factors that can be controlled, unlike the weather or Russia further cutting supplies. However, the governments are primarily concerned about the social aspects of the crisis, with consumers unable to afford the high costs if it continues. Germany faced heavy scrutiny over a €200 billion financial scheme to help citizens and businesses survive the energy crisis, with two commissioners asking how EU countries with different economies can support businesses and consumers. Protesters have taken to the streets across EU countries already over the high cost of living, with more strikes planned. One of the big challenges in Europe is the degree of coordination and solidarity they're able to sustain through the crisis, and that would determine how it's going to affect its citizens. Will Europe be able to unite and solve the rising energy crisis before it becomes worse than it is? Would they leave the political game and focus on the effect of their choices on their citizens? Let us know what you think in the comment section. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications.